Title: Merino Silk, Luxury or Hype? It's spring, the flowers are blooming, the birds are singing, the worms are munching, and it's time to align with the season. So let's all pull out our silks. Merino silk is one of those yarns that instantly sounds luxurious. Soft merino, shiny silk, elegant branding, expensive skeins. But is it actually worth it? Does it wear well? Is it practical? Is it beginner friendly? And why does it make even very simple knitting look elevated? Today we're going to do a deep dive into merino silk. We're going to talk about the good, we'll talk about the bad, and all the bits that people don't necessarily discuss. So let's start at the very beginning. What is merino? Merino wool comes from the merino sheep. It's known for having finer, much softer fibers than many traditional wool types. That finer fiber diameter is one of the reasons that merino often feels less scratchy against your skin. It's also loved for its elasticity, warmth, and breathability, as well as the way that it helps regulate your body temperature. In knitting terms, merino gives you a fabric that feels soft, springy, and comfortable. It's also really forgiving to wear. Next, what is silk? Silk is a natural protein fiber, usually produced from silkworms. It's known for its smooth handle, gentle sheen, and strength for its weight. It also has a beautiful drape. Silk reflects light differently to wool, which is why fabrics containing silk often look more luminous and luxurious. It doesn't just change how the yarn feels in your hand, it changes how the finished garment moves and catches your eye. So why did we decide to blend them? Quite frankly, because they balance each other beautifully. Merino brings softness, warmth, elasticity, and structure, and silk brings drape, sheen, fluidity, and luxury. Together you'll often get a yarn that feels wearable and soft, and a little bit special. But how do the two completely different fibers become one yarn? It's pretty straightforward, but this is how the blend is made. Before spinning, the fibers usually need to be prepared and then aligned. This usually starts with both of them being processed in the loose fiber form. Once that's happened, they are then blended together, normally by carding or brushing, so that they get evenly distributed throughout the fiber mass. You can kind of think of it like mixing paint, but instead of paint, we're working with fibers. And once the blend is evenly distributed, it's then ready to be spun into yarn. But how the yarn is spun matters a lot. A tighter spin may create a firmer, more durable yarn with clearer stitch definition. A looser spin may feel softer and more luxurious, but can sometimes pull or wear a little faster. So two merino silk yarns can have the same fiber content on the label, but behave completely differently. And that is because fiber content is only part of the story. Preparation, spin, ply structure all matter a lot too. Not all merino silk yarns behave the same way, because changing the ratio also changes the fabric behavior. Even a small shift in that percentage can move your yarn from being springy and comfortable to more fluid and drapey. Common blend ratios and what they feel like. First up, we have 80% merino and 20% silk. This is more wool leaning, and you're often going to get more bounce, more elasticity, more shaping, and more memory. The subtle sheen rather than an obvious illumination. This is usually a great option for things like sweaters and casual everyday wear. Up next, we have 70% merino and 30% silk. This is a very balanced and luxurious blend. You're going to notice things like softness, drape, gentle sheen, but still enough structure for garments. It's one of the most versatile ratios. My personal favorite, 50% merino and 50% silk. Here you're going to notice more movement, cooler hand feel, more shine, and much less bounce, but more tendency to grow depending on the garment weight. This is perfect for shawls, tees, drapey garments, kind of like the silky merino wraparound cardigan. And after that, we have anything with more than 50% silk ratio, and this is obviously going to have more silk-leaning personality traits. Shine, drape, smoothness, less memory, but more premium feel, and potentially some challenges with the fit. Usually this is going to be better for specialty garments and not for beginner basics. What would be my honest recommendation? If you're new to merino silk, I would say start with a 30% silk, 70% merino blend. Why? Because you still get the elegance of silk but enough structure from the merino to make the garment work. It's going to make knitting it and wearing it a lot easier for you. You're basically going to get the best of both worlds. But essentially, if you love structure, go for something more merino leaning, and if you love drape, go for something more silk leaning. If you're making a heavy sweater, be very cautious of too much silk. If you're making a shawl or a tee or something drapey, a lot of silk could be stunning. An important nuance to remember is percentage is only a part of the story. Spin style, ply structure, and also gauge and the garment design still matter hugely. 70-30% from one brand can behave very differently to a 70-30 from a different one. Does silk merino have a backstory? Does it have a moment in history? Does it have a canon event in textiles? Where did it come from? Merino silk as a labeled yarn blend is relatively modern, but the idea of blends is much older. For centuries, textile makers have been combining fibres to bring out strength and reduce weaknesses. So while one mill probably didn't invent silk merino, the idea existed for quite some time. And the blend also represents something that humans have chased in textiles for a very, very long time. Comfort and beauty in the same conversation. Across history, clothing has never been only about survival. It's also been about identity, status, artistry, and self-expression. Merino silk sits in that tradition. It represents the democratization of luxury. Historically, silk was inaccessible to most people. Fine wools and silky fabrics represented status and wealth. Today, a hobby knitter can go out and buy themselves some merino silk, take it home, make something special, and that shift matters culturally. Luxury moved away from the courts and the elites, and it kind of moved into our stash. What once signaled status now signals artistry. It also mirrors the slow rise of craft culture and handmade fashion. The popularity of premium hand knitting yarns grew alongside handmade clothing, mindful making, sustainable wardrobes, and fewer, more high-quality garments. Merino silk often appears in this space because it feels special enough for an heirloom garment. There's one moment in fashion, one little canon moment, and that was when Coco Chanel elevated knitwear. One of the biggest moments in fashion was when Coco Chanel put a spotlight on softness, drape, and feminine knits. This was back in the 20th century. Before that, usually women's luxury garments were quite stiff, they were a little restrictive, but they had a lot of shape. Back then it was kind of all about the silhouette. Chanel popularized ease, comfort, and movement. She made understated luxury a whole thing. And this matters because without that shift, luxury knitwear as we know it today, soft, elevated, desirable, would look very different. Before luxury knitwear became a thing, someone had to make it a thing. In the same time, we can also look at Christian Dior and his opulence movement post-war. After the shortages and the rationings of the war years, Christian Dior in around 1947 presented the new look. It represented abundance, femininity, and a return to beauty and extravagance. And while it was still more famous for its silhouette, it also reflected something much deeper. People were ready for richness again. They were ready for craftsmanship. They were ready for high-end clothing. And when culture starts to crave beauty, the textile industry rises with it. Why does that matter? This era helped restore an appetite for beauty and texture and indulgence. which is the same emotional lane that premium fibres live in. On the sidelines, brewing quietly, was Italian luxury mills. So if France helped develop couture, Italy became one of the great homes for luxury textiles. Across the 20th century, Italian mills built a global reputation for turning exceptional raw fibers into fabrics that felt refined, modern, and classy. We're not talking a bougie classy, we're talking a tactile classy. We're talking about a world where the fine fiber itself was the status symbol. Not logos or branding, but the literal handle of the fabric. The softness of the knit, the way the fiber moved, and the way it wore over time. Houses such as Loro Piana became iconic for this approach, building prestige around ultra-fine merino, silk, cashmere, vicuna, and other rare natural fibers. And in that context, a merino silk makes perfect sense. It offers modern luxury. It increasingly values comfort, discretion, material excellence, elegance without shouting. And by the time quiet luxury became a trend phase, Italian textile culture had been making that a thing for decades. They turned fiber quality itself into status. Drapey luxury basics, elevated layering pieces. This is the cultural world where merino silk belongs. So, what nobody tells you. For the honest part. Luxury fibers are still fibers, which means they still have their own behaviors. And merino silk is no exception. If you knit a heavier garment, especially something oversized, or if it's long or with a lot of positive ease, it may lengthen over time. That extra drape could be beautiful and elegant, but it's something to plan for and not something to receive afterwards. Sometimes it's not the yarn's fault, it's just gravity and a lack of understanding. Another thing that is commonly complained about is that merino silk has far less bounce than regular merino wool. Merino has elasticity, but silk reduces that completely, which means the fabric doesn't always snap back into shape. So depending on the project, that could feel luxurious or it could feel frustrating. Then there's pilling. Yes, even expensive yarns can pull. In fact, more frequently, the more expensive yarns pull more frequently. This happens because they prioritize softness, finer fibers, lower micron count, loft, delicate hand feel, and luxury sensations. And those qualities can increase surface friction, which can lead to pilling over time. Hard-wearing rustic wool will probably pull much less than a very luxurious soft wool, because price and durability are not the same thing. Soft fibers are gorgeous against the skin, but that comes with its own trade-off. Areas with friction, we're talking about underarms, the sides, anywhere where your bag may be rubbing. Normally the parts that are going to show pilling first. This isn't a flaw. Personally, I don't mind this. I will go for a luxurious soft fiber and have to deal with that any day of the week. Another complaint is that merino silk is often a little too honest. It doesn't blur over uneven tension or hide finishing shortcuts the way fuzzier yarns sometimes can. Smooth, slightly lustrous yarns tend to show stitch definition very clearly, which means they may show rowing out, shaping choices, structure inconsistencies a little more obviously. Which brings us to the important conversation, and that is luxury doesn't equal a perfect design. If anything, it's going to reveal it. Your pattern choice really matters when you pick something like a merino silk. You want to make sure that it's something you really know and love. This doesn't make merino silk a bad yarn, it just makes it a very intentional choice because it rewards your thoughtfulness. And when everything comes together, it can be absolutely stunning. Next up, we're going to have a little chat about the ethics of silk. So, as previously mentioned, traditional silk is made from silkworms usually. Specifically the little cocoons. Typically what they do is they process the silk, the cocoon, before the moth has had a chance to emerge. Why they do this is so that they can unravel that thread in one continuous go. For some people that feels completely acceptable, and for other people it doesn't align with their ethical choices. There are alternatives. You could go for a pea silk or a ahimsa silk. This is basically where they allow the moth to emerge first, and then they just use those shorter fibers. The fibers are then spun from shorter broken lengths rather than one continuous filament. And that can change the texture, and that can also change the price. But many knitters prefer to go for the ethical route. There are also other options. If you love the look of merino silk, but it's not aligning with your preferences, here are a list of other alternatives. Merino bamboo, merino tencel, merino cotton, merino linen, merino alpaca for softness, merino nylon for strength. So you can make informed choices here based on your values and your budget. And also quite specifically what type of garment you want to make. I think another good conversation to have in this area is, what is merino silk similar to? Like, what are our options? So merino silk kind of sits right in the middle of the fiber world. It's not fuzzy like mohair, and it's not crisp like linen. It sits in a space of smooth, elegant luxury yarns. So you could compare it, for example, to cashmere. It's one of its closest comparisons for softness and premium feel. Both are considered luxury fibers, and both have a great skin feel. And both are usually chosen for something you want to treasure forever. The difference is usually in personality. Cashmere can feel softer, fluffier, and warmer, and silk, merino silk, feels smoother, more polished, and sleeker, with the caveat being it has more shine and a much clearer stitch definition. Cashmere is cozy luxury, silk is refined luxury. Next we have merino and tencel or lyocell. Tencel and lyocell are fibers made from plant materials, usually wood pulps that are processed into a soft fiber. They're known for smoothness, sheen, and drape. Blended with merino, they can create a similar fluid, elegant feeling to merino silk. This is going to be a great option for someone who would prefer a plant-based option to the silk elements. Next we have merino and bamboo or viscose. Bamboo yarn is usually made by processing bamboo plant material into a regenerated fiber. Next we have yak blends. Yak fiber is known for warmth, softness, rich, luxurious handle. It often has more matte appearance than silk. There's shine, it can feel incredibly elegant, and it can feel very premium. Yak would appeal to someone who loves softness and sophistication, but you don't necessarily need that fluidity or that sheen. And then last on the list would be extra fine merinos. Some very, very fine merinos can achieve that same feel as silk, just without the sheen. So you lose some glow, but you keep some elegance. My thoughts on the subject: if you love merino silk, you may also enjoy cashmere, yak blends. If you're looking for something plant-based, go for a merino tencel, a merino lyocell, or a merino bamboo. It's going to come down to what do you value the most, because there isn't one fiber that gives you all of that in one go. Next up, what would be a great project for merino silk? I think merino silk really shines, excuse the pun, in elegant sweaters, lightweight cardigans, tees, shawls, layering pieces, just really special occasion knitwear. Your heirloom basics. It's less ideal for rugged outerwear, hard-wearing children's clothes, highly structured garments needing stiffness. Yes, if you like drape, visual richness, softness, elevated luxury, then it absolutely can be worth it. But if your priority is low cost, maximum durability, and machine wash convenience, luxury doesn't mean better for everyone. It means better for certain purposes. If all this talk of merino silk has inspired you to cast something on, I do have a pattern that was designed for this exact fiber blend. My silk merino wraparound cardigan is a romantic wrap style design, worked in elegant panels with a gentle lacy texture, Created to make the most drape, softness and movement. The green sample was knit in Malabrigo Silky Merino yarn, and the pink sample was knit in Life in the Long Grass Silk Merino. And to celebrate this video, I'll be running it at 50% off for this week only. So if you'd like to experience merino silk for yourself, I'll leave the link below. If you've used merino silk before, please tell me in the comments. Did you love it? Did you learn from it? Did you regret anything? Did anything surprising happen? And if you enjoy these fiber deep dives, please subscribe. I have plenty more coming. Till next time.